Hey, good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Let's Talk About It. This is Susan Johnson, and my co host is out doing great things, but he may join us later. But we have a fabulous guest for you today. We have Lieutenant Governor Susan Bysiewicz to join us here at WILI. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, and happy International Women's Day and Month, all in the same.
Thank you so much, Lieutenant Governor Bysiewicz, and I am absolutely thrilled to have you here on Let's Talk About It because you're doing some amazing work here in the state, but you're also right now focused on International Women's Month.
That's right. We are celebrating Women's History Month all month. And so I've been traveling around to different parts of the state. So I will be in Eastern Connecticut to celebrate Democratic elected women with fabulous people like yourself and Kathy
Thank you.
Austin and Martha Marks. But there's a lot to celebrate because this year, 2025, is the 50th anniversary of Ella Grasso being elected first female governor in the United States of America.
Well, let me just say, our lieutenant governor has been in office. She started serving in 2019, got elected in 2018. Before that, you were Secretary of the State from 1999 to 2012, and then you served in the House, where I am now, from 1993 to 99. And you wrote the first book for Ella, a biography of the first woman governor to be elected in her own right in the USA. You're a undergraduate of Yale's undergraduate school and Duke Law School. And I just wanted to say you have been focused on women's rights, and you wrote that book about Ella Grasso. And it's one of the things that I first learned about you was the book that you read about Ella Grasso and how focused you've been on the fact that this country has been progressing. With respect to making sure women do the work and have the rights and get honored. And I think one of the best things that you can do and say when people do the work and that we need to celebrate the things that work well for our society. And this is the thing that we have to do. It's part of the deal.
It is. And so we have progressed. So right now in Connecticut, 34.8% of our seats are held by women. So if you would go back to the 1950s when Ella Grasso was there was just a handful. And now we have many more in our state legislature. I wish we had more in our U.S. Congress and U.S. Senate. We have 25% in the Senate, and we have about 28% in the U.S. Congress. And I have a feeling things would be working better in Congress if there was parity, if half of the members were women. I feel like better work might be done if there were more women at the table.
Well, let me say that one of the things that I've come to really appreciate is the national group called Women in Government. And Women in Government, they have these conventions twice a year, and I've been going to them. And their focus really is about the health and the well-being of the country. No matter what state you're in, no matter what your party affiliation is, it doesn't matter. They really take care. We all take care. I go to these to find out what other states are doing. And we really focus on how the health care works, how the education works, how is our transportation safer. All those kinds of things are things that we discuss, and even more so at the Women in Government meetings that we have. And I learned so much from people, other women in other states, and I bring as much information as I can from our state about what we do, and we share our legislation and how things work, and it really makes a difference.
I think it does, and I hope that people understand that we are moving forward in Connecticut because paid leave is an example of a very family-friendly, female-friendly, but also male-friendly policy that allows people time paid time off when they are welcoming a new baby, whether they're the mom or the dad, when they are suffering from cancer, they can stay home and take care of themselves or take care of a sick spouse or sick elderly parent. 190,000 families have taken advantage of that. And that is one of the reasons why our state is known for being one of the most family friendly in the country. It's because of that policy.
And I just want to add, when we first put that policy into existence, I did research. And one of the things that I found is New York State did it before we did. And not that we're competing, but they saved approximately $90 million in Medicaid payments in the state of New York because the family could come in and help out when it might have cost the Medicaid program money. So this paid family medical leave saves the state an enormous amount of money. It puts families together so that they can take a little time from the job and help out a family member. And it's just a good thing for the families, for the state, for the people. And to have that confidence to know you have that break, that you'll be able to take care of mom or dad or brother or sister or even yourself, where you wouldn't have been able to do that before we got the paid family medical leave.
And research shows also that when you have family members caring for loved ones, they stay out of the hospital much longer. Their health outcomes are better, and it makes sense, right? When you have a loved one providing care. And as a matter of fact, we have programs in the state designed to keep older people in their homes longer by actually paying relatives and family members to provide that care, because it's much cheaper to keep someone in their home, and everyone would prefer that over going to a facility.
Absolutely. The facilities are, of course, very necessary, and they're great, certainly for people who have more needs than the family can handle. On the other hand, being able to take care of somebody in the home and having the correct support in the home from home care agencies and personal care attendants, those are the kinds of things that really help people stay in the home and help people have the space they need when they have somebody that requires a lot of care in the home. But the skilled nursing facilities are excellent. They are something that we need, and I know, when I digress for a minute, in our Human Services Committee, we just limited the moratorium on the expansion or the limitations of nursing home beds. Why? Because what we need is we need to make sure people who go to the hospital and actually do require a skilled nursing facility level of care have a place to go. And because we've had the moratorium for more than 30 years, now people are having a hard time getting placed in their catchment area, in the area where the family has the most chance to visit them in the nursing facility. So it's a really required thing in terms of how our Medicare and Medicaid law works now, for the discharge planning staff to be able to make a discharge plan so the person has a place to go in a facility when it's a skilled nursing facility level of care. And then they get the care, and then they can get out, because the original plan for Medicare and Medicaid was that you go from the hospital to the skilled nursing facility to home care, and then you'd be all better. And that was the vision in 1965.
Yeah, and it's a good vision, and we will have to see what happens with some of our federally funded healthcare programs like Medicaid, because perhaps many people do not realize that about 1 million people in our state are on a form of Medicaid. So that would be young people on Husky, that would be pregnant moms, that would be older people in nursing homes. And so one of the things that you and I are bracing for is, what happens with that funding. And I hope it continues, because it's been a lifeline and so important for the healthcare needs of people of all ages, from young children to our oldest adults. And I hope that we don't lose that, because we've put our state onto a very fiscally responsible path because of our partnership with the legislature, and it would be a shame when we're in a very good place to have critical federal funding cut.
Well, I think we're going to find out today just exactly maybe in the next few weeks, what will happen, because the vote on the reconciliation and the budget in the federal level is coming up. It's due by midnight tonight, unless they make a deal to continue it, which, the continuing resolution actually, so many people say, will cut a great deal of Medicaid out of the budget. And it looks to me like that will be putting us in perhaps a state of emergency so we can be in compliance with our contracts with all the providers. So I actually asked our Medicaid director to come to the Complex Care Subcommittee of the Medical Assistance Policy Oversight Council and talk to us about what will the state do. This is going to be on Thursday. I believe that's the 9th. I don't know, Thursday the 19th.
So and I'll just say to that point, because it's not just Medicaid funding that potentially is in jeopardy. There are many different kinds of federal funding. Our state receives approximately $14 billion in federal funding. So that is about half of our budget. And one of the things that the governor and I know, because we have asked each of our commissioners to let us know how much their agencies depend on federal funding, because literally there are people who work in Department of Consumer Protection, our Department of Transportation, Department of Health, that work in state agencies but are funded. Their positions are funded by federal programs. So, these are decisions that are going to be extremely impactful on our state.
They will be on our state, and I say if they really do cut these programs, the Medicare and Medicaid program are foundational for the healthcare system. A lot of people think, well, they don't pay as much, but they are foundational. Without them, without those programs, a lot of the research will go out by. A lot of the things that we have for access to healthcare will shrivel up. So we won't have as many doctors, not as many nurses, and we're already in a situation where we don't have as many doctors and as many nurses.
It's concerning, right, on a lot of levels, because we do have healthcare deserts in our state, and Eastern Connecticut is one of them. But also, I'm concerned about cuts to personnel at our VA hospitals. And of course, we have a VA hospital in West Haven. And we have one in Newington as well. And we are a state with 146,000 veterans. We were just talking about veterans before the show. And so that concerns me, because our veterans rely upon the VA hospitals for care, and they're great. But it's concerning when I hear that doctor positions and healthcare positions are being cut there.
So I think that this is to the people in the House who voted to do these cuts. They will be impacted too, because that is going to be a place where our loss of health care won't just affect people on Medicare and Medicaid. It won't just affect the people who have health insurance. It'll affect the entire country. It'll take time, but our doctors will go in other places where their brilliance will be accepted. Our nurses will find other ways to make money, and they will go in other places if they're not going to be taken care of in the healthcare field, even though that's where their first goal is, and they're so appreciated, and they do so many good things for all of us. But the healthcare system won't be the wonderful system that we have now. Even though it's got a lot of flaws, it still is a great system, and we're working on improving it. But to take away this money from the Medicare, Medicaid program, a foundational support, is going to hurt the whole country, not just the poor.
And the other thing that we have to think about is what happens with Access Health CT, which is our Connecticut version of Affordable Care Act. More than 100,000 families take advantage of that. And there are many small businesses that do as well. So that's another issue that we have to watch. But I want to make sure that we talk about two veterans programs, one that will be happening in Windham on March 31st at Windham Middle School, at 4 p.m. Representative Susan Johnson and Senator May Flexer and Mayor Tom DeVivo will be joining forces to honor and recognize Vietnam veterans who live in this beautiful town, and we'll be having the Commissioner of Veterans Affairs, Ron Welch, joining us, and we will be presenting special pins and recognitions, and best of all, hearing the stories of our Vietnam veterans who sadly did not receive the welcome home that they deserved when they came back, because our country was very divided about the war, and sadly some people wrongly took out their anger over the war on our men and women who served. And our Vietnam veterans have taught us a very important lesson, that no matter what we might think about a war or the leaders that sent our country there, we always have to support our soldiers.
Absolutely. We must support the soldiers. I know Dennis served stateside during the Vietnam War, and, so it's very near and dear to our hearts to make sure that everybody is recognized for the amazing work that they did, what they went through. And one of the things that I did when I was in college, and I learned about the Soldiers, Sailors, and Marines Fund, and I did a internship with Legal Services then, and I wrote a manual for them on the Soldiers, Sailors, and Marines Fund, and right now it's being managed and has all been transferred to the American Legion. So what the Soldiers, Sailors, and Marines Fund does is it helps veterans' families from Connecticut to get services and support for temporary services and support, and so family members can go to the American Legion and get help. And so that is something that I think probably I'd have to revise my manual because it was a couple of years ago. That's a joke. And and I just so I have a great appreciation. As I mentioned to our Lieutenant Governor, my father was a World War II veteran. He served during World War II. After the bombing of Pearl Harbor, he was there cleaning up Pearl Harbor as a
It was
Navy
a big job,
ensign.
I am sure.
It still isn't done. I was there a couple of years ago, and they still have oil leaks. They still have bodies under the
Ugh.
capsule, turned over a ship and all that. So it's still, and it's a very, very. I was in tears going through the videos that they have, and they're only about a half an hour. But I would suggest that it would be a great thing to show those videos all over the country, because I think we don't really get what war is, because we haven't really suffered like we did. We suffered a lot when 9/11 happened. We suffered with the bombing of Pearl Harbor, and of course we suffered during the Civil War. But these are things that are kind of remote in people's minds, and they really need to be brought closer to our understanding of what our veterans and what our soldiers go through, and how we really should be so thankful to them for the amazing work that they do.
And I would like to, Susan, put out a call to anyone who knows of a living World War II veteran, because our office on May 19th will be celebrating the 80th anniversary of the end of World War II. And to celebrate, we are bringing together all living World War II veterans at the State Armory at 11 o'clock. And we have asked every mayor and first selectman around the state to identify living World War II veterans. And many mayors and first selectmen have gotten back to us and told us, yes, we have several. No, we don't. But town halls do not have perfect information. They'll only know about World War II veterans that are living in a home that they own, and perhaps have a tax exemption for veterans' property tax. However, we may have World War II veterans living in a senior facility, living in an apartment, living with relatives, but we'd like to put out the call for anyone who knows a World War II veteran, please either contact the Lieutenant Governor's office or their mayor for selectmen and let us know the name, the age, the branch of service if you know that person. So far, we've identified about 200 living World War II veterans, and we will be honoring them May 19th at the State Armory. We'll have representatives from the British and the French governments who will be coming to say thank you. I literally met a month ago a man in Middletown, a World War II veteran who served on D-Day. He was in the second wave on D-Day. He also was in the Battle of the Bulge, if you can imagine that. Just a remarkable man, 98 years old, sharp as a tack, and he will be one of the people who will be attending that ceremony.
Fabulous. I hope that I am not having to vote in session.
Yes, yes, exactly. Exactly.
But I will be there if I don't have to vote,
Right.
because I don't want to miss any votes. But anyway, but that is a great thing to do, and it's wonderful for us to be able to celebrate them, and to think we have people coming from the British and French governments. That's fabulous. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing to do, and to have them here in Connecticut.
Isn't that amazing?
Yes.
Yes, it is quite remarkable. And some of the people who are coming, some of the veterans who are coming, have actually been recognized by the French government. You know, are special honors that are reserved for Americans who fought on French soil during World War II. We have seen that the World War II Museum in New Orleans estimates that there are 1,200 living World War II veterans in our state. I feel that could be a little high because I think that figure may be a bit old, and sadly we are losing our veterans every day. But this is an incredible opportunity, so please do get in touch with the Lieutenant Governor's office, with Commissioner Welsh's office, or your mayor for selectmen, and let us know if you know of any living World War II veterans.
I just have to say, this is from the World War II Museum in New Orleans.
It is an amazing, she is pointing to a red, white, and blue necklace.
Yes.
That's lovely with pearls, and that is an amazing museum.
It is. I was just enthralled, and I was only able to go for one day, but I was just captivated by the videos, the way that the whole place is orchestrated. The bombings, the seats rattle while you're sitting in the seat. I mean, it tries to bring you as close to what our military soldiers go through during war.
Have the opportunity to go into
Yes.
planes that our men flew in. And, you know, my dad rarely taught, and this is, I think, probably, this experience that others have had, but many World War II veterans never really talked about their experiences during the war because to them, they felt everybody who was able-bodied in their age group was doing that, so they didn't feel like what they did was special, but what they did was incredibly heroic, and what they did at very young ages, because you had young people who are getting their parents' permission to go in at 17 years old, even 16 or younger, and they did remarkable things. Ordinary Americans stepped up and did incredibly courageous things to save our country, our democracy, European democracies like the one in Britain and the one in France. So.
Well, I just have to say, what you just said was very similar to what my own family experience was, because my father passed at 33, probably
so
from
young.
Exposure to the atomic bomb testing, and also to the cleaning up of Pearl Harbor after the bombing.
Oh my goodness.
And so, but never talked about what happened.
33 is so young.
And he actually did tell his neighbor, my grandmother, his mother's neighbor in Maine, all about it. And several years later, he came to visit, and he told us all about the things that my father told him. And all the
Wow.
things that, so how I know this is because of what he told to his
Ne-
mother's neighbor.
neighbor and not, you
Not
didn't
the
get it from him.
family. Well, no, yeah, because I
Well,
was 5 years old. I mean,
here's the thing.
mm,
1 in 10 Americans were serving during World War II,
right.
right? So during the course of the war, 16 million Americans in total served, and 12 million were serving at any one time. And so the population of our country at the time, was about 100 million. So it was quite remarkable what they
Hmm.
did. And I think a lot of them felt like, well, everyone was doing it. So they didn't really think that what they did was remarkable, but incredible,
It
amazing.
really was. I mean, and to think that we have now the Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, because of what happened to create democracy, save democracies, and to save the world from additional huge wars, world wars. I mean, we certainly have had wars, but they haven't been on that scale. And that having NATO is a big, big deal. And I'm
Hmm.
concerned about where we're going with NATO as well, and so are the Europeans. The democracies in Europe are concerned as well. So I hope that everybody begins to understand what NATO is and why we have NATO, and take a full understanding, because we're at risk without NATO.
We sure are. And I want to thank you so much for having me. It's
Well,
so lovely to be in Wyndham again. I come here frequently, but I don't always have the opportunity to be on your show when I'm here. So nice to see you. Thank you for everything you're doing in the legislature.
well, thank you for everything you're doing in the executive branch. We always know you're available to talk to. And thank you for the tremendous honoring that you're doing. And I'm very, very gratified and thankful for your giving me an honor when I think you're the one that deserves the honor.
Oh, well, thank you. I'll be very proud to be in the company of some smart, powerful public servants. So thank you so much for having
Thank you
me.
so much. Thank you, Lieutenant Governor Susan Bysowitz. We're so glad you were here, and we'll be glad to have you back again. Hey, welcome back, everyone. This is Susan Johnson, and I'm here with my co-host Dennis O'Brien, and we have to thank Lieutenant Governor Susan Bysowitz for being here for the first half of the show. It was a wonderful show talking about Women's History Month, and I have to say I'm very honored and thankful that she's recognizing the elected women officials here in this Eastern Connecticut area, including me and Senator Flexer. Senator Austin, and people like Don Niles, who are on the council. So we are very, very pleased to be able to do that, and that's a celebration and recognition at 5 o'clock in Colchester. But now I have my co-host here, Dennis O'Brien, and welcome back, Dennis. Glad to have you here. And one of the things that we also talked about was the fact that on the 31st of March, at 4 p.m. in the Wyndham Middle School, Susan Bysowitz will be back honoring the Vietnam veterans. And I said Dennis was a Vietnam veteran serving stateside, and so all the work of the veterans, no matter where you served, is very, very important, should be recognized.
Yeah, I don't know if I told you, but I got an invitation to that in the mail, and I'm really, really thrilled to be able to participate. I remember participating in an event a few years ago with, I think it was with Lieutenant Governor and you and Greg Haddad and also I think May Flexer was there, and it was honoring veterans as well. It was over at the high school, I believe, and I was there, and we had a great time with the veterans.
That's fabulous. And then she said also they're going to be recognizing in March 19th all the living World War II veterans.
Oh, my God.
Right there in Hartford, and they have officials from Great Britain and in the town. In the country of France. So
well, that always almost brings a tear to my eye thinking about that. I still cannot get over how much we owe those people who the greatest generation who kept us safe from the Axis powers and that awful those awful times, and they are amazing, and we lost so many of them, but those that are still around, we need to honor them and make sure they realize how much we even today appreciate their sacrifice and what they did for us to keep America great.
Absolutely, and I will be there if I can possibly. As long I told the lieutenant governor, I will attend as long as I don't have to vote, because we may be in session. I don't think we will be, but as long as I don't have to vote, don't want to miss a vote. But I certainly will be there for that. That's going to be amazing, and to think people from Great Britain and France will be there to honor and thank the World War II veterans is wonderful. And of course, as I've told many people many times, my father was a World War II veteran, served in the Navy, and worked on cleaning up Pearl Harbor after the bombing, and was out there exposed to the atomic bomb testing. So, and of course, he passed at the age of 33. So.
Yeah, I was especially proud, as you know, of my Uncle Joe Miotti, who was married to my father's sister, Peg Miotti, who was once Peg O'Brien, and he was a Navy flyer in World War II, and he was honored, greatly honored for shooting down a kamikaze pilot in the South Pacific when he was a Navy flyer. And he never talked about that. I knew he was a flyer. He used to show us some films of himself taking off from an aircraft carrier, and when I was a young kid, and I never knew what a great war hero he was. He just kept it to himself, and it came out after he passed away. And I remember being at his funeral, and it brought tears to my eyes.
Mhm. Yeah, that's something that Lieutenant Governor Bysowitz and I were saying, that many of the people who serve in the military during the wars, they don't talk about their experiences. That's the same thing with my father. I didn't find out about what he did until my grandmother's neighbor came over and told us about what he had learned from my father, and several years after my father died. So, it's something that's classic. And I think while we're talking about that, I remember George Petros didn't talk about his World War II experience either with his family. He kept that to himself as well, and we had learned that from Charlotte Petros. So.
Well, I remember when George was still here, we got him on Let's Talk About It.
Yeah.
And he did talk a bit about it.
Yes, he
did. I guess he talked more on the radio with us than he had, with a lot of people over the years. And he was much older then, and it was a real pleasure and an honor to be with him on the radio and to talk about that. I every once in a while I got in the habit when I was in the probate court of checking obituaries, because you do that sometimes when you get older. But when I worked in the probate court, I did, and I'm saddened every time I see an obituary for, but pleased to see they're being recognized for somebody who served in the big war.
Yes. Yep. That's it. We also expressed some concern about what's going on, people understanding what NATO is, how it's been preserving democracies all over the world, but particularly in Europe, stopping wars in Europe, and how that is an important feature in terms of one of the results of the war was having NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, to be able to make sure that people understand what the significance and importance is of NATO.
Yeah, I don't want to get too political, but I'll tell you, I am very much concerned about the Ukraine.
Yes.
And I'm my sympathy with the Ukrainian people has been extensive ever since this thing started. I as somebody who was born during World War II, I'm dating myself here. I'll tell you, I remember as a young kid, when I began to understand a little bit more about it when I was 5, 6, 7, people talked about the war all the time, and they talked about the Hitler, and they talked about Mussolini, and they talked about what Japan did, and they were, that was a big deal, and it was a big deal that we won that war, and that we kept but I never thought, after all the times, the years I lived, all the decades I lived, that I would ever see an attack on a Western European country by another country. I thought we were done with that, and it's just so scary. So it's indescribable the way I feel about it. It's almost not real, and we really need to come to the aid of the Ukrainian people again, and to do what we can to protect them. And I'll tell you, their leader is one of my biggest heroes. I love the guy. He's brave. He's courageous. He's strong, and he's been recognized as such by lots of folks and lots of news organizations, and he is can't say enough about him.
I agree. He is a very amazing and strong fighter, but the people of Ukraine are very strong fighters as well. He's got a group that he can work with who are ready to go and fight. They don't want to be taken over by a dictator. They don't want a dictator. They understand what it means, and they had dictators before, and the people in Europe understand what it means to have a dictator.
Yeah, I wish we could do more about it. I'll tell you, it's really a sad situation, and I just hope it turns out better. I really expect the American people to rise up and demand that we again support the good people of the Ukraine.
But we also discussed a little bit about what's going to happen to our programs. The vote today is taking place on the national level to see what our budget will look like, what impact it will have on the state of Connecticut. As the Lieutenant Governor was saying, the state of Connecticut gets approximately $14 billion from the federal government. If we lose a huge amount of that money, we're going to have to take a look at where we can no longer afford to provide services to the people here. Our veterans, our seniors, our people who are in a situation where they need to get Medicare or Medicaid assistance, or if they're in the Affordable Care Act, whether they continue to have the subsidies for their regular private insurance. So, and without those subsidies and that cost and that foundation in health care, as I was saying before, it's not just the people in the low-income population, not just the people who are senior citizens who will lose out. It'll be everyone, even the people who voted to cut these things. Those Congress people who made those cuts, they will be hurt as well, because the whole system will not work like it has been.
Well, we're in a state of chaos right now, and chaos is not good. We need stability in this country. We need the kind of stability we've had for the last 80 to 85 years in the post-war era, and it seems to be in question right now. And people need to think about it. They need to think about it real hard. They need to rise up. They need to say what's on their minds, because these are really critically tough times, and we've got. I talked about the Ukraine situation, which I think is deplorable, that we're not supporting Ukraine and saving lives and saving the lives of children, keeping people from being bombed and hit by guns and all kinds of weapons and against they're being trained on civilians, and at the same time here we have an unelected person running around trying to cut with a chainsaw. Taking a chainsaw approach to federal government employees, putting people on the street, people that are helping people that we are needed to make sure people get their Social Security checks, their Medicare, their Medicaid. An unelected person who was born in South Africa and who may be very rich, but he is also very ignorant about how things are supposed to work in a democracy like the United States of America, and it's very, very scary, and something needs to be done about it. Sorry to speak so strongly about it, but I feel so strongly about it, I cannot resist.
Well, I'm glad that you did. I think that we all have to talk about the things that we feel very strongly about. And one of the things that you see, I have to say, are some of our leaders in Congress, and I'm glad we have them. People like United States Senator Chris Murphy, people like United States Congressman Joe Courtney, people like United States Senator Dick Blumenthal. They understand what's going on. They have great minds, and they really do understand what's happening to our country, and they're fighting. and they have different ideas about how to fight. And you can't blame them for whichever way they go with these things, because it's very, very difficult, especially from this perspective, to figure out what to do.
Well, I'll tell you, you didn't mention John Larson, our old friend
my
from
God.
East Hartford, who we've known for many years. And John is a good guy, and he's always been, he measures things, and he's very, very careful, and he does the best for the people, and he for the people, the working people, the children, the seniors. He's always been there for them, and he's easily elected every time he runs from East Hartford area. And John, there's everybody who has access to the internet ought to go on the line and see what John Larson said about the apparent effort to turn the Social Security program by Elon Musk, under the authority of the President of the United States, to turn the Social Security program into a private operation and to privatize it. And he said it in no uncertain terms. I mean, he was shouting, and every word was true. Every word was measured. There was not a word out of place. Wonderful job by John Larson. I am so proud of John Larson. I wish I could contact him and tell him. I'm sure he's got better things to do than to talk to me. But I'll tell you, I'm going to go watch it again. I was so inspired by his words, and I've been inspired by the words of Chris Murphy ever since Chris has been speaking out about this ahead of almost everybody for quite a while. And Chris Murphy, I support you 100%, 120%. John Larson, Dick Blumenthal. We have the best congressional delegation in the country by far. We're lucky. If only the other congressional delegations would behave like real Americans, sticking up for not only for America but for our allies all over the world. We'd be so much better off. But right now, we are in trouble. And we need the American people need to rise up and turn this around.
Absolutely. I was absolutely just awestruck by Congressman Larson's remarks about what he's tried to stop, and he actually had a wonderful impact, because the idea of privatizing our Social Security program, putting it on Wall Street, having it subject to the ups and downs of the stock market, and then maybe losing everything, because the stock market might crash, especially given the tariff situation, is something that I have been terrified about for a long time. It's been something that they've talked about for the last 45 years. And people said, no, they'll never do that. And I said, they'll do it because they'll say, oh, look, we're going to put it in the private sector. And some people think that's a good idea. But actually, it's a horrible idea, because you're not protected. You're not insured. You're subject to the ups and downs of the stock market. And if it crashes, there goes the Social Security benefit. So it is a real, real problem, especially
I think what John Larson was saying to some extent is by trying to get rid of all these Social Security employees, trying to get rid of the telephone system where people can call in and make sure their benefits are there or apply for benefits, they're creating a system that won't work. And then if it doesn't work, they'll say, okay, the system's no good. We've got to change it and privatize it and put it on the stock market into the whims of the rich,
right?
And the investors. And it's like a game. It's like a game of crap.
It is a game.
It is not right. It is not right. We need security. This is what is happening is essentially, to some extent, as a senior citizen myself, it is basically a war on senior citizens.
Right.
There's a war on senior citizens. They don't want to pay for our Social Security benefits. They don't want to pay for Medicare, Medicaid, anything. All these programs that were put into place back in the 30s for Social Security, and in the 60s for the other programs that are the greatest programs, the greatest and fairest and most effective government programs in the history of the world.
Yes, absolutely. And we were leaders in that area, and other countries, other democracies have followed, and they have those types of securities now in other countries. And so we led the way, and now to try and take it all away from people, that's going to be a real horrible situation. So we'll be watching very carefully at the state level to see what happens on with this budget. When midnight is when the vote occurs, it has to occur unless they negotiate another deal in the Senate to go back to the House to delay it for, say, another week. Sometimes that happens, but it doesn't look like it's going to happen just yet. And if they do take everybody's stuff away, they take away their Medicaid, they take away, say, one of the warnings from the former director of the Social Security Administration at the federal level is to take a look and see if you're going to get your check in April.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing if I get my check in April.
Yeah.
I certainly hope so, and I hope everybody out there, people who need those checks to survive, are getting those checks, because it is a matter of survival. It is a matter of survival. I can tell you, if you don't know, that being older is not as easy as it is to be younger, and you need that help, and you earned it by working hard all your life, and it's really not fair, and it's hard to believe that it's really happening. And I got to say, I admire you, Susan Johnson, my representative, and my state senator May Flexer, and Susan Bysiewicz, the lieutenant governor, Governor Lamont, all you people working at the Capitol in this situation where it's hard to know exactly what's going to happen when you're trying to create a budget for the state. And then on a local level, I'm a member of the Willimantic Taxing District Board of Directors, and we deal with the budget for our local police and fire departments, who do a wonderful job keeping us safe here in town. And we don't know. We're trying to set a budget for them for this next fiscal year beginning July 1, and we have no idea what's going to happen, because if the state loses tons of money from the feds, it's going to impact everything. It's going to impact education for children. It's going to impact Medicaid for seniors and disabled people. And it's also going to impact public safety.
Yes, it is.
So everybody, this is everybody's fight. We all need to come together, and we need to stop these people from doing what they're trying to do.
Well, that's one of the reasons I'm glad you and I had this conversation at this critical time when the vote's taking place. We are down to our last few seconds. Thank you, co-host, for your amazing chatter. And I have to thank the Lieutenant Governor again for joining us for the first half of the show. And we'll be back with another great show next week.